Boom! I'm back with as much fake energy and real excitement as I can muster because it's time for another Spellbook Studies! Ladies and gentlemen, you have found yourself over to the Reliquary Tower, and for this episode we are going to be taking a look at something that magic historians will either look back on as a horrible blunder or a majestically beautiful mistake that at least made one person happy. This guy! With the new unset Unfinity and Wizards of the Coast's new rules changes to how they are printing traditionally silver-bordered sets, Commander has promised to have a bunch of wacky goodness become format legal, and even though at the time of writing we have seen very little of the set, I am completely hyped! And for once, not just for full art lands! Looking at one of the first legal cards spoiled, today we will be opening our spellbooks to Saw in Half, and be answering all the important questions like, does this count as removal? Would this be good in Commander? Am I alive? Is there a god? People, one at a time. I am but one being with unfortunately only one mind, and all your questions will be answered in due time. First answer, yes, you're probably alive, assuming this recording is not being used in your personal hellscape for all eternity. If it is, please let me know there's a hell so I can start being a better person. And probably stop making jokes about people being tortured for all eternity. Now for the actual card. Saw in Half is a 3 mana value instant that is cast for 2 generic mana and 1 black. It has the text destroy target creature. If that creature dies this way, its controller creates 2 tokens that are copies of that creature, except their base power is half of that creature's power and their base toughness is half of that creature's toughness. Round up each time. No, that's a lot of text! Second answer of the video, is this removal? Technically, yes. See, if I broke down your door, covered in chicken grease, wielding a chainsaw, and sawed you in half, you'd be dead! So technically, removal. Would you then become 2 halves of yourself? Not unless you were a pod person or an earthworm in the imagination of a toddler. Just like how that wouldn't be an efficient way to murder you, Saw in Half truthfully is not efficient or very effective removal, so to count it as such is probably a bad idea. So in order to understand what makes good creature removal, we need to first understand what makes a good creature. Creatures provide value to you in 3 ways, the primary being their power and toughness. It's what makes their permanent type different from all the others. Regardless of how effective they are at it, creatures from crabs to colossi can attack and defend for you. The second thing that makes them valuable, especially for Commander, are their text abilities. From static abilities to ETBs in a format where every spell you cast needs to 3 for 1 your opponent, you need to impact the board in big ways. Finally, creatures give you value in the form of their keyword abilities in conjunction with their other abilities. After all, a creature with trample means nothing if it has 0 power. See, while I'd consider other unorthodox cards like Dress Down good removal, it's because it removes the majority of a creature's text. Since it takes away all abilities, it turns creatures into blank permanents, stripping them of practically everything that gives them value. Especially since combat is fairly pointless without evasion. If you're using Saw in Half on your opponent's creatures, it doesn't just get rid of their sweet, delicious value and text. It duplicates them, giving them 3 ETBs instead of 1, or double the static abilities instead of a single. There's no point in trying to remove a Goblin Chieftain if your opponent's board is just going to end up with 2 pump effects and super haste! Hey, the fact that you can use Saw in Half on your opponent's creatures is still an upside. It's just not removal. You can use it politically to help an opponent inhibit another if you don't have the right cards for the job or just want to hold your cards for a power play. And you know, sometimes your mana crypt's just been kicking your ass and you really can't afford to take that hit from Galta and just need it kind of out of combat. You know, those coin flips have kind of been adding up and you can't afford taking 12 after you've already just taken 16 from your own artifact. Gosh golly. Days we live in. With that in mind, it's time to answer the actually important question here. Who cares if you're alive? Who cares if there's a god? We need to know, is Saw in Half a good card? In my opinion, yes. You should not be surprised by this. If you saw Spellbook Studies 2, you know how I feel about copy spells. I love them! I love them a lot! And Saw in Half really is just a copy spell for your creature with the benefit of giving you a death trigger. Would you like to mill 18 cards with Stitcher Supplier instead of 6? Or sacrifice 9 instead of 3 with Butcher of Malakir? Create 12 insects instead of 4 with Hornet Queen? I mean, it sounds like a pretty good deal to me! In a deck filled with Death and ETB triggers, Saw in Half can sometimes provide you with massive mana reductions in value. The only problem with this card: you need a commander masochist enough to enjoy sawing people in half. What I'm saying? Me. I should be your commander. In all seriousness, Saw in Half could find a good home in any deck with a sacrifice synergy. There are a surprisingly high number of masochist commanders out there. There's Marin Muldroth, Azuri, Olivia Strephon, and Chatterfang. Also a bunch of others I didn't feel like singing. Trust me, there's a lot of them. While Sacrifice can see massive potential, the absolutely perfect place for Saw in Half is in a precon. Inala Archmage Ritualist is a wizard tribal commander that already wants to copy your creatures. Saw in Half is just excellent redundancy. Wizards like Archmage of Emeritus and Veyran already care about instants and sorceries. You can recur Saw in Half with Kess, Snappy, and this Lich. Some things already want to die, like this other Lich. Not to mention you have great ETBs like Venser, Spellseeker, and Puppeteer Click, plus you can duplicate tribal synergies like Final Iteration. Not to mention, Narumeha and Dualcaster Mage, which already are in most Inala decks, create a lovely 2-card combo with Saw in Half. You copy Saw in Half with Dualcaster Mage, which saws in half a Dualcaster, which copies a Saw in Half, which saws in half a Dualcaster, and so on. With this fun combo, you get infinite deaths, ETBs, copied spells, and always net 1 Dualcaster Mage, so you can infinitely copy a Lightning Bolt if you want at the same time. Or just tap all of them with Inala for infinite loss of life. While it may not be great removal, I think Saw in Half is a fantastic card just waiting to find the right build and enough people to care enough about it to put it in a good home. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a fun set, a weird set, and I feel like it's going to have some powerful cards. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel or checking out our Discord server linked in the description below. We have a lot of fun both making content and running the server, and hope you can join in on that fun too. Please have a good night, or day, depending on when you are watching, and most importantly, draft well, people. Thank you for watching.